We've been talking about this story for a couple of days now and trying to understand why the government is intent on doing this. I asked Jean-François Lisée about this about 15 minutes ago. He seems to think this isn't a far-fetched idea as a way to reduce the number of foreign students coming here. So there are committee hearings on Bill 74, right? They continue today, and this is the bill that the government wants to introduce to cap the number of international students coming to Quebec. So yesterday, a few of Quebec's universities came together, CEGEPs as well. Graham Carr, President, Vice-Chancellor of Concordia, was there making their pitch, and he is on the line now. Graham, thanks for coming back.
Good afternoon, Aaron.
So I'm not sure. Look, maybe I don't understand what's going on here. It seems to me, first of all, we thought this might be just another shot by the CAQ government at restricting Anglo institutions. It's not. You were there with French universities as well. It seems to be a shot across the bow here from this government to basically tell all of you, you're going to have to cut back on the number of temporary foreign students here, when in fact you're not the ones, you, other universities who were there, who are causing a problem here with bringing students in here under false pretenses. Is that what you're in essence asking for?
That's a big part of it. I think it's perfectly understandable that the Quebec government, the Canadian government, any government wants to have, a regulated immigration policy. My concern as president of Concordia, and I think the concern that is shared across the university and CEGEP network, is that by pointing in the direction of international students, the government is really taking aim at a group which it should be doing everything to encourage to come to Quebec rather than to discourage from coming here. And I don't think it's fair to attribute some of the problems associated with immigration to international students.
Did the government explain the rationale here? Did Jean-François Robert say we want to do this because? Is it strictly a matter of saying, look, we've taken in too many of these over the years and we know that number has gone up? Or was there an explanation?
Well, again, part of the problem here is around data. So the minister has talked about particularly an explosion of international students in Montreal. He cited figures of 120 plus thousand international students. There are between 57 and 58,000 international students across the ensemble of Quebec universities.
Well, hold on. He cited 120. You're saying there are less than 60. I mean, that's not even close.
Correct, and that was pointed out more than once yesterday during the testimony. So again, part of this is making sure that we have, and we've been through this before, Aaron. The challenge of having not just data-driven, but at least data-informed discussions and public policy development. The other reality is that the minister has once again made specific comments about Montreal and made claims that there are too many international students in Montreal. McGill and Concordia are a big part of that Montreal University community, and we have both actually experienced a decline in international student numbers in the last couple of years. The Anglophone sector has, and this includes bishops, has actually been declining in terms of the number of international students we've been recruiting. The growth that's happening in Quebec in international students is happening in Francophone universities, and it's especially happening in Francophone universities in the regions.
Again, too much of this doesn't make sense, although perhaps we shouldn't be surprised to find that out. So were you dismissed out of hand, or where does it go from here?
Well, I hope we weren't dismissed out of hand, although I couldn't help but notice that, before my testimony, which was yesterday afternoon at 5:45, together with Sébastien Lebel-Grenier, the principal of bishops, the minister had been quoted in the morning as saying that the position of the universities was unreasonable, and that the government would be going ahead and making a policy to reduce the number of international student visas, even before the universities and the CEGEPs had finished testifying on that point. So that's a bit of a concern. I have to say also, at this stage, we're very concerned as a sector about where this bill could lead, because we haven't been given any indication of the kinds of quotas or ceilings that might be applied, how they might be applied. Will they be applied differently in the regions to Montreal? Will they target certain kinds of programs versus other kinds of programs? Will they target certain institutions? by language as opposed to other institutions. None of those questions are answerable at this point. So it's creating a lot of uncertainty and confusion within the university sector, but then you can just imagine the level of confusion that's creating for prospective students.
Well, so let's talk about that. I know we talked about this originally when the government introduced that new legislation with respect to foreign students, new language requirements, tuition hikes, etc. How has that affected Concordia?
Well, we're seeing on the international student file, if we just look at that in isolation, we've experienced a 16% decline in the number of international students at Concordia, new and returning this year compared to last year. That's pretty substantial. I was with Sébastien, as I said yesterday. Bishops has experienced a decline of more than 20%. So the reality is that previous policies are already having a very negative effect. And I have to frame this also, Aaron, by saying that over the course of the last 2 years, between the federal and provincial governments, there have been 12 different policies announced that are affecting international students. Policies with regard to eligibility for the PEC, which we discussed earlier, policies with respect to tuition, now policies with respect to allocation of visas. It's unfortunately created an impression of Quebec and Canada that's not very positive for prospective students. And the irony is it's happening at a time when there are more students internationally looking to study abroad than ever before. And we can also show, based on our data here at Concordia, that when we're talking about international students, we really are talking about top talent. Our international undergraduate students at Concordia, their student success rate is well over 90%. They graduate on time, in part because that's a condition of their visas. And at the research level, we desperately need international students to support the research and development activities of universities that are contributing to Concordia, to Quebec's R&D economy.
I would mention as well, given that this is happening, given that your funding is directly affected by this, right? There are program cuts, there are employment cuts. I imagine that's all got to be part of this, is it not?
Of course it is. The reality is that universities in Quebec, universities across Canada are badly underfunded. One of the tools that universities turned to address that underfunding was to recruit more international students because the domestic pool has not been growing, right? The number of students graduating out of Quebec CEGEPs, graduating out of Canadian high schools, it really hasn't been growing over the last few years. So in order for institutions to meet their financial requirements, we've had to look elsewhere. And the irony in all of this is that the government of Quebec actually incentivized, starting last year, Francophone universities to go and recruit international students by providing tens of millions of dollars of funding to them, which were not available to the Anglophone institutions, precisely to go and recruit international students. So now we're in a situation where the government has been telling universities, on the one hand, you need to go after that international market, and here's the funding to support it for some of you. And now we're being told, whoops, you're not going to be able to go after those international students to the same degree. And it's really hard to square those 2 points.
That's absurd. Here's more money to bring temporary foreign students here. Oops, I'm sorry, we're changing the rules. Sorry about that. That's what you're dealing with. That's what you're describing.
Correct. The règles budgétaires, which were issued this year, provided more than $20 million to Francophone universities in Quebec exclusively for international recruitment purposes. And in those same règles budgétaires, the amount of money that would be available to those Francophone universities will be increased over the next 3 years, so that 3 years from now, it will be more than $80 million of public funding, which is used to recruit international students, while we're now learning that, in fact, the government wants to cut visas.
Yeah, it's just something here just doesn't make any sense at all. Look, I don't know what the government wants to push ahead with this. It certainly seems like they do. I'd be curious to see how this plays out on the floor of the National Assembly when it does. I imagine you will get some support. I will point one other thing out, Graham, if I'm not wrong. You mentioned when I asked about enrollment going down, you mentioned bishops. Bishops was not even part of, right? They managed to opt out of this, and yet they have still seen interest in tuition, or interest rather in enrollment, fall.
Yeah, they've seen a decline in students from the rest of Canada. It's true that they had been given an envelope of tuition waivers that they could apply, but students stopped applying. We're all scrambling to try to make up the loss of students from the rest of Canada internationally by competing more and more with each other for Quebec students. I have nothing against that. We want as many Quebec students as possible. 70% of our student population is from Quebec, but there's a limit to how many Quebec students can be shared through the network as a whole. So it's not created a very healthy environment.
To say the least. I thank you so much for the time. Let's hope something actually happens on this now that we're speaking out about it. Graham, thanks so much.
Thank you, Aaron.
Take care.
Thanks for your interest.
Happy to help.